I sat in my son's ICU room after his car accident, the sterile beep of the ventilator drilling into my skull like an accusation I couldn't escape. The surgeon, a man with eyes like chipped ice and a voice stripped of any false hope, leaned over the chart and said, "His chances of recovery are less than 10%. The internal bleeding, the brain swelling. It's a miracle he made it this far." His words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, splintering something deep inside. My boy, Tommy, just 19, lay there tangled in tubes and wires. His face swollen beyond recognition, bruises blooming like dark flowers under his skin. I wanted to scream, to shatter the glass partition separating us from the hallway where nurses whispered like ghosts. Instead, I gripped the arms of the chair until my knuckles whitened, fury boiling up from a place I didn't know existed. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to him. Not because of her. The room smelled of antiseptic and despair, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of angry insects. I stared at Tommy's chest rising and falling mechanically, each breath a forced imitation of life. My mind raced back to that morning. Him grabbing the keys to my sedan, grinning about some college party. "Dad, I'll be careful," he'd said. His voice full of that invincible youth. If I'd known, if I'd suspected. But suspicion came later, creeping in like fog over a graveyard. Laura arrived an hour after the call from the hospital. Her face a mask of practiced grief. My wife of 22 years, with her perfectly coiffed hair and the faint scent of lavender perfume that now turned my stomach. She collapsed into the chair beside me, her hand reaching for mine. I let her take it, but my fingers stayed limp, cold. "Oh God, Mark, what happened?" she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Authentic, I thought then. Heartbroken. But even as she sobbed, something nagged at me. The way her eyes darted to the door, as if expecting someone else. The police report came the next day, delivered by a detective with a mustache like a broom bristle and a tone that suggested he'd seen too many of these. Single vehicle crash on Route 12. Looks like he lost control on the curve. No witnesses, no skid marks. Brakes might have failed, but we'll need the mechanic's report. I nodded, but inside doubt festered. Tommy was a cautious driver. I'd taught him myself. And the car, my car, was serviced just last month. Laura hovered in the background, twisting her wedding ring, her face pale. "It was an accident, Mark. A terrible accident." Her voice cracked, but there was a hitch in it, a false note that echoed in my ears long after the detective left. That night, alone in our empty house while Laura rested at a friend's, her words, I couldn't sleep. The silence pressed in, heavy with unspoken questions. I poured a scotch, the burn down my throat a poor substitute for the rage simmering beneath. Why had Tommy taken my car? His own was in the garage, keys on the hook. I wandered into the study, flipping through bills and mail, anything to distract. That's when I found it. A crumpled receipt in the trash, from a motel on the outskirts of town. Dated 2 weeks ago. Paid in cash. And scribbled on the back in Laura's looping handwriting. "Meet at 8. Can't wait. L." Heartbreak hit first, a sharp twist in my gut that made me double over. Denial followed, whispering lies. Maybe it's nothing, a friend, a surprise. But obsession took root, pulling me to her laptop, left unlocked on the kitchen counter. Emails. Hidden in a folder labeled recipes. Dozens of them, from a sender named J. Harlan. Jonathan Harlan, my business partner of 15 years. The man I'd trusted with our construction firm's finances, our future. "I need you," one read. Mark's clueless. "Soon it'll just be us." Attachments. Photos of them together, intimate, laughing in places I recognized. Our cabin upstate, the beach house we'd all shared last summer. Rage exploded then, hot and blinding. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Tommy, my God, Tommy. Had they planned this? The brakes. The curve on Route 12, the one I took every Friday to the office. Was meant for me. Tommy had borrowed the car on a whim to impress some girl. Collateral damage in their twisted escape plan. Humiliation burned through me. How long had they laughed behind my back? Resentment coiled tight, imagining their whispers, their touches while I worked late to build the life they now plotted to steal. But guilt crept in too, cold fingers around my throat. Had I been blind? Distant? Laura had complained about my hours, the firm swallowing our time. And Jonathan, slick, charming Jonathan with his easy smiles and backslaps. We'd built Harlan and Reed from nothing, turning it into a multi-million-dollar operation. Now this. I paced the living room, the carpet muffling my steps, shadows stretching like accusations. Fantasies flickered, confronting them, fists flying, blood on the hardwood. But doubt whispered proof. The receipt, the emails, circumstantial. I needed more. Planning began in the dark hours, a cold resolve settling over the heat of anger. Watch, wait, make them pay. The next morning I returned to the hospital, masking my turmoil behind a facade of weary concern. Tommy's condition unchanged, the monitors a constant dirge. Laura was there, holding his hand, her eyes red-rimmed. Any change? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. She shook her head, squeezing my arm. We have to stay strong. Natural almost. But I saw the flicker, nervousness, guilt. I spoke to Jonathan, she said casually. He's handling things at the office. Said to take all the time you need. My jaw tightened. Of course he did. I left her there and drove to the impound lot, the air thick with oil and rust. The mechanic, a grizzled man named Earl, wiped his hands on a rag. Brake lines were cut clean, he said, pointing to the severed hoses under the wreckage. Not wear and tear. Sabotage. His words confirmed the nightmare. Police know. He nodded. They're investigating. But I knew better. Jonathan had friends in high places, donations smoothing paths. This wouldn't stick without more. Back home, I rifled through Jonathan's files at the office. Remote access I'd never revoked. Discrepancies leaped out. Funds siphoned to offshore accounts, invoices inflated. Embezzlement. The affair was the spark, but greed the fuel. He'd kill me for the insurance, the control. And Laura. Accessory or puppet. Heartbreak twisted anew. Had she known about the breaks? Moral conflict gnawed. Confront her, or let the police. But resentment won. This was personal. That evening, Laura cooked dinner, a peace offering of lasagna, her specialty. We ate in silence, the clink of forks deafening. Mark, talk to me, she finally said, her voice soft, pleading. I know this is hard. I met her eyes, searching for cracks. Hard. Our son's dying because of an accident. She flinched. What do you mean? Subtle but there, fear in her tone. Nothing, I muttered, pushing away. Inside, obsession grew. I'd make her confess, make them both suffer. Days blurred into a haze of hospital vigils and secret digging. I hired a PI, a shadowy figure named Reyes, who tailed Jonathan. Photos arrived, them meeting at the motel, hurried embraces. Audio clips. Once Mark's out, we cash in. Her laughter light and cruel. Humiliation festered into cold resolve. I fantasized traps, poison, accidents mirroring Tommy's. But fear held me. What if I failed? Became the monster. Doubt plagued. Was revenge justice or destruction? One night, as rain lashed the windows, Laura broke. Mark, I need to tell you something. Her face crumpled, hands trembling. Jonathan and I cut her off, feigning shock. How long? Tears flowed. A year. Just happened. But the accident? I swear I didn't know. Lies. Truth. Her sobs rang hollow. He said he'd handle the divorce clean. No mess. Tommy. Rage surged, but I swallowed it. We'll talk later. She nodded, relieved. But inside, planning solidified. I'd use her guilt, turn her against him. The surgeon called at dawn. Tommy's swelling reduced slightly. Glimmer. But resentment burned brighter. Jonathan visited that afternoon. All false sympathy, clapping my shoulder. Hang in there, buddy. Firm, solid. His eyes gleamed with hidden triumph. I smiled thinly. Thanks, John. Means a lot. Tension crackled, unspoken. He left, and I followed discreetly, watching him meet Laura in a cafe, their heads bent close. Subtle hints dropped, a whispered argument, her pulling away. Seeds of discord. Inner conflict raged as I drove home, rain blurring the windshield like my thoughts. Guilt over Tommy. Had my ambition driven her away? Obsession with justice warred with fear of consequences. But resolve hardened. They'd pay, slowly, painfully. Weeks passed in a slow burn of calculated moves, each day layering tension like bricks in a wall destined to crush. Tommy lingered in limbo, his vitals stabilizing enough for whispers of hope, but the doctors cautioned, permanent damage likely. I visited daily, holding his hand, murmuring apologies for the family I'd failed to protect. Laura hovered, her guilt manifesting in over-attentive care, cooking meals I barely touched, her eyes pleading for forgiveness I withheld. "Mark, please," she'd say in bed at night, her voice a fragile thread. I ended it with him. For us. Natural dialogue, laced with desperation. But I saw the text she deleted. Still in contact, hedging bets. Jonathan grew bolder, calling meetings at the firm, pushing decisions that favored his siphoned funds. I played along, the dutiful partner, while Reyes dug deeper. Bank records linking Jonathan to a mechanic's payoff, the same Earl from the impound, now suspiciously silent. Proof mounted, but I hoarded it, letting resentment ferment into a plan. Fantasies evolved. Not blunt violence, but poetic ruin. Expose him, bankrupt him, then the final twist. One evening, as autumn leaves skittered across the driveway like fleeing secrets, I confronted Laura in the kitchen. The air hummed with the fridge's low drone, steam rising from forgotten coffee. "I know about the breaks," I said flatly, watching her face drain of color. She gripped the counter, knuckles white. "What?" "No, Mark, Save it." Jonathan cut them. "For me." Tommy was collateral. Her denial crumbled, sobs racking her body. "He said it was just to scare you. Force a buyout." I begged him not to. Begged. Or suggested. Heartbreak twisted with fury. "You let him." She sank to the floor, whispering, "I'm sorry. So sorry." Moral grayness enveloped me. Was she victim or villain? But obsession pushed, use her. "I need your help," I said, crouching beside her. Her eyes widened, fear mingling with relief. "Anything." I outlined the plan. Lure Jonathan to the cabin, stage a confession. Record it. Turn him in. But hidden motives lurked. My version included no police, just justice. She agreed, trembling, guilt her leash. The drive to the cabin was tense, fog cloaking the winding roads, headlights piercing like accusations. Jonathan arrived first, his SUV crunching gravel. Laura went in alone, wired with a recorder I'd bought anonymously. I waited in the woods, rain soaking through my jacket, the chill matching my resolve. Through binoculars, I watched shadows move behind curtains, embraces, arguments. Tension built, heart pounding. What if she betrayed me again? Voices filtered through the cracked window. "Laura, baby, what's this about?" Jonathan's smooth baritone. "Mark knows," she hissed. "About us, the money, the car." Silence, then his laugh, cold, dismissive. "He suspects. No proof. He has emails, receipts." Panic edged her voice. Then we handle it. Permanently." My blood iced. "Like Tommy," she pressed. "That was an accident. Kid took the wrong car." Liar. But enough, admission veiled. I burst in then, door slamming against the wall, rain dripping from my coat. Jonathan spun, face paling. "Mark." "What the?" Laura backed away, eyes wide. "It's over, John." My voice steady, despite the storm inside. He smirked, recovering. "Jealous." She chose me. Humiliation flared, but I held. "Embezzlement. Attempted murder. I have it all." I tossed the folder, Printouts, photos onto the table. He scanned, sweat beading. You can't prove, Earl talked. Payoff traced. Tension peaked, the room thick with suppressed rage. Jonathan lunged for the door, but I blocked, fists clenched. Why? I demanded. His facade cracked. You were holding us back. Conservative bids, no risks. With you gone, the firm thrives. Laura and I. Thrives. Back. You stole millions. He glanced at Laura, betrayal dawning. You set me up. She nodded, tears streaming. For Tommy. Chaos erupted. Jonathan grabbed a poker from the fireplace, swinging wild. I dodged, pain exploding as it grazed my arm. We grappled, crashing into furniture, wood splintering. Laura screamed, but I pinned him, knee on his chest. Admit it. Rage poured out. I cut the brakes. For you, not the kid. Triumph surged, recorder capturing every word. But doubt flickered, ended here. Call police. Whoa. Cold resolve, make him suffer. I dragged him outside, rain pounding, to the cliff overlooking the lake. Same spot we'd fished as friends. He begged. Mark, please. We can split the money. Pathetic. Laura followed, horror-struck. Mark, stop. Moral conflict hit. Was I better? But resentment won. I shoved him toward the edge, wind howling. Jump, or I push. He teetered, eyes wild. You wouldn't. I stepped closer. He slipped on mud, arms windmilling, and fell, scream echoing into the abyss. Body hit rocks below with a sickening thud. Laura gasped, collapsing. What have we done? But it was me. Guilt crashed in wave after wave. Had I become the monster? Back at the cabin, I erased the recorder, staged a note. Jonathan's suicide confession, embezzlement exposed. Police bought it, grief-driven leap. Firm salvaged, insurance paid. Tommy woke days later, partial recovery. Wheelchair-bound but alive. Laura stayed. Guilt binding us in a fractured marriage. But nights, I stared at ceilings, obsessing over the fall. Justice. Or vengeance's hollow echo. The twist came months later. A letter from Jonathan's lawyer. Hidden clause. He'd transferred shares to Laura pre-death. She inherited control. Her eyes met mine over breakfast, a subtle gleam. For us, she said. Betrayal anew. Or my paranoia. Revenge's cycle spun on. Suspense eternal in the shadows of doubt.